How to buy a cabin on state land for $2/year, 5 states still selling 15-year leases. Most people who stumble onto this truth think they've found a loophole. They haven't. They've found something stranger, a government asset so deliberately hidden, so deliberately kept off real estate websites and out of the mainstream conversation that it functions like a secret simply by virtue of existing in plain sight. The revelation I'm going to share with you at the end changes how you understand property ownership itself, not the tactical stuff about leases and bidding processes, but something more fundamental about what it actually means to own versus borrow, and which one might actually be closer to the life you're really after. If you've watched property content before, go ahead and subscribe anyway, and drop a comment below telling me what you'd use state land for if you could lease it tomorrow. Seriously, I read these. Your answer might surprise someone else watching. Wait, I need you to sit with something specific for the next 60 seconds. Every single state government owns land that is actively leasing to private citizens right now. Most of that land is western, most of it is near water, and almost none of it shows up in a Zillow search. The full mechanics of how this works, the step-by-step process, the bidding strategies, the financial structures that make cabins cheaper than car payments, all of that lives in our complete guide, which you can grab from the description or the pinned comment below. That guide walks you through the signals that separate a genuine opportunity from a trap, so you don't get caught by a lease that's about to terminate or a parcel with hidden restrictions. It's worth having before you start looking. The angle everyone misses is this. When you lease state land with a cabin already on it, you're not just getting cheaper real estate. You're stepping into a relationship with government that almost nobody thinks about. Most people assume state land means bureaucracy, means limitations, means that you're always going to be fighting the system. That's backwards. State land leases exist because of bureaucracy, yes, but the kind of bureaucracy that actually wants you to succeed. These aren't federal lands. They're not national parks or protected zones. They're working assets. The state needs lease revenue. The state needs people managing these cabins, living on them, maintaining them, so they don't fall apart. You're not an intrusion. You're a solution to a problem the state has had for decades. Here's what happens when you walk into this world. The moment you start looking at state lease parcels, the entire real estate market framework you've been trained to think in just dissolves. You stop thinking about property appreciation. You stop thinking about flipping or equity buildup or any of that. Instead, you're thinking about this. For 15 years, you get to inhabit something beautiful, something that would cost $250,000 if the land itself were included in the sale. You're paying $2,000 or $3,000 a year, sometimes less, to live beside water that the state refuses to commercialize. That's not real estate investment. That's a different category entirely. It's access. It's permanence light. It's the closest thing most people will ever get to owning the unearnable. 5 states dominate this landscape right now, and they work in fundamentally different ways. Montana operates what might be the most generous system in the country, where the leases run long, the land is genuinely extraordinary, and the annual payments stay almost shockingly low. Oregon has opened up parcels on lakes that have names most people have never heard, in valleys that look like they exist outside of time. Idaho, Wyoming, and Colorado each have their own variations, their own bidding schedules, their own quirks. But all 5 share a common principle. The state wants you to sign a lease. The state wants a signature, a commitment, a person who's going to show up every season and repair the dock and make sure the pipes don't freeze and keep the place from becoming another abandoned structure rotting in the backcountry. The cabin itself, here's something crucial, is where most people get confused. You own the building. You don't own the land. This distinction doesn't feel like much until you really think about what it means. It means you can renovate. You can add a deck, upgrade the interior, install solar panels if the state allows it. It means you can treat it like home, truly, with your own hands and your own vision. What it also means is that when the lease ends, the state gets the improvements. You get 15 years of ownership of a structure that exists on someone else's ground. To most people, that sounds like a losing proposition. To people who understand what they're actually after. Not wealth accumulation, but genuine retreat. Not investment, but sanctuary. It's the opposite. It's liberation. It's the chance to build something meaningful without the crushing expense. Montana's trust land system exists because nearly 2.5 million acres of state property were set aside generations ago to fund schools and public institutions. The state, trapped by constitutional limits on how it can spend that money, leases the cabins to private citizens as a revenue stream. It works. The lease rates stay low. The system remains sustainable. But Montana also has something else. It has a waiting list. People know about it. The bidding can get competitive. You think you found a hidden thing, and you did, but you're not the only one who found it. Idaho operates on a similar principle, but with one crucial difference. The state owns roughly 5.5 million acres of endowment land, and while Montana's system is transparent and widely known among people who pay attention, Idaho's leasing program remains genuinely obscure. Most Idahoans don't know it exists. Most Americans certainly don't. The cabins sit on state forest land, on the edges of reservoirs, tucked into valleys where cell service barely reaches. The lease terms run anywhere from 10 to 20 years, and the renewal rates, frankly, are among the lowest in the country. A cabin lease in Idaho's backcountry costs roughly $2,000 to $3,000 annually. Some run lower. The cabins themselves vary wildly. Some are pristine A-frames built in the 1980s. Others are hand-built structures from the 60s with wood stoves and no grid power. You get what the previous leaseholder left standing. The application process in Idaho moves slowly and demands patience. You contact the state lands office. You express interest in a specific lease coming available. You wait. Sometimes you wait for months. The state doesn't advertise these aggressively because they don't need to. Demand is steady. The renewal system favors existing leaseholders. If you already hold a lease and pay on time, the state will almost certainly let you renew it when the term expires. This creates a stable, long-term relationship between leaseholder and government. But it also means openings are rare. When a cabin lease becomes available in Idaho, typically because someone aged out or relocated, word travels quietly through a network of people who already understand what these leases represent. Now, before we continue, and I need you to hold this thought for a second, there's a pattern emerging across these state systems that most people miss completely. The best deals, the lowest renewal rates, the most available inventory, they're not in the famous outdoor destinations. They're in the places fewer people have heard of: Wyoming, New Mexico, parts of Oregon that aren't on Instagram. These states have state land leasing programs that are aging, underpromoted, and frankly running on outdated administrative systems. That's where the real leverage exists. And if you want to understand how to actually navigate these programs, how to position yourself to win a lease when one opens, how to calculate your actual long-term costs versus buying land outright, that's exactly what the comprehensive guide in the description walks through. It breaks down the application tactics, the bidding strategies, the financial models for 5 different states. It's there for you to reference as you move through this. Oregon's system differs fundamentally from both Montana and Idaho. The state owns roughly 9 million acres of forest land, most of it managed for timber revenue. Within that massive portfolio sits a scattering of old cabins, originally built by Forest Service employees, now leased to private citizens. Oregon's cabin leases typically run longer. Some are perpetual leases with annual renewal options that could theoretically continue indefinitely. The annual cost hovers between $1,500 and $4,000 depending on location and cabin condition. But here's what makes Oregon different. The cabins are older and more rustic than their Montana counterparts. Many have no running water. Some have no electricity. If you want a full-service modern cabin with heating, plumbing, and contemporary amenities, Oregon is not the answer. But if you want exactly what those early forest rangers wanted, a simple shelter in the trees with a porch facing the valley, where the work of maintaining it is part of the appeal, Oregon remains among the cheapest options in the country. The application process in Oregon operates through the state forestry department. Availability is sporadic. Cabins sit on the market anywhere from weeks to months before someone claims them. The state doesn't conduct formal auctions. They process applications on a first-come basis once a lease becomes available to the public. This means Oregon requires a different skill. You need to be watching the listings consistently. You need to have your financial situation verified and ready before you apply. You need to move quickly once something appears that meets your criteria. Speed matters more than strategy in Oregon. A cabin that sits empty for 6 months can vanish within days once it goes live. The state would rather have someone in the structure than leave it abandoned to rot. That urgency works in your favor if you're prepared. It works against you if you're still thinking about whether you want to apply. Now, before we push forward into the final 2 states, I need you to understand something critical about what we've covered so far. Montana gives you the cleanest lease terms and the most straightforward bidding process. Washington offers the deepest discount and the shortest commitment window. Oregon keeps you cheapest and most connected to the actual maintenance tradition those cabins were built for. Three completely different philosophies. Three completely different answers to the question of what it means to live on someone else's land. But the pattern is starting to show itself. These aren't vacation properties. They aren't speculation. They aren't ways to build wealth. They're ways to step out of the housing market entirely for a period of time that actually matters. A decade and a half. Long enough to know a place, long enough for your children to have memories that stick, long enough to plant something and watch it grow to maturity. Before we continue, keep this clear in your mind for the next stretch. The deeper you go into understanding how these leases actually work, the more you realize the guide I mentioned at the start, the complete breakdown of mechanics and patterns and the exact signals to watch for. That resource is in the description and pinned comment. It takes everything we're covering here and shows you the mechanisms underneath. The decision trees, the red flags that separate a solid lease from a trap. It's a paid guide, worth the investment if you're serious about moving forward. Most people skip it. The ones who actually secure these cabins don't. Idaho enters the picture differently. The state owns roughly 5.5 million acres, but the cabin lease program there isn't as formalized as Montana or as transparent as Oregon. What exists in Idaho is fragmented, scattered across different agencies. The Forest Service manages some. The State Endowment Land Office manages others. The State Parks Department has its own inventory. Finding Idaho cabins requires knowing where to look and who to call. The advantage is that competition is lower. Fewer people understand the Idaho system because the Idaho system deliberately obscures itself. No statewide listing site, no coordinated calendar of when leases open. You have to contact individual districts. You have to ask the right questions in the right order. You have to essentially prove to the state that you're serious enough to hunt for the information before they'll hand you anything. A cabin lease in Idaho typically runs 7 to 10 years, shorter than Montana or Washington. The annual cost hovers between $2,000 and $4,000, depending on location and condition. Some of the best deals in the Mountain West hide in Idaho precisely because people assume the state doesn't have a program. They're wrong. The state has several, they're just harder to find. Accessing an Idaho lease means calling the right regional office and asking about recreational cabin opportunities on state trust land. The conversations tend to be longer and more personal than in other states. You might talk to someone who's managed these properties for 15 years, someone who remembers the families who built them, someone who genuinely cares whether you're the kind of person who will treat the cabin with respect. This matters. Idaho rewards the patient applicant, the person who does the homework, the person who understands that living on state land comes with obligations, not just privileges. You're not renting a commodity. You're joining a tradition. Wyoming rounds out the five. The state offers seasonal cabin leases on state land, primarily in the Northwest. These lean shorter and cheaper than the other options. Some run just 3 or 4 years, some cost barely $1,200 annually. The catch is that Wyoming tends to prioritize Wyomingites. Non-residents face longer wait lists and occasional skepticism from the administering agency. But the skeleton of the program exists. Access is possible. And if you're willing to establish residency first, or if you have family connections in the state, Wyoming offers genuine pathways that most people never discover. Now, this is the secret I promised you at the beginning of this video. The reason these 5 states are still selling 15-year leases while the rest of the country has locked its public land away behind walls of bureaucracy and price tags that only billionaires can afford. It is not because these states are more generous. It is not because they have better politicians or deeper pockets. It is because they understood something fundamental that most states forgot. Land does not have to belong to you forever for you to build a life on it. You do not have to own the ground to own the meaning you make there. The 5 states we walked through, Montana, Maine, Colorado, Oregon, and Wyoming, they have kept one door open. And what that means for you right now, in this moment, is this. If you have ever felt priced out of the kind of life you actually wanted, if you have ever looked at a lake or a forest and thought, that should be for everyone, not just people with 7 figures in the bank, these programs prove that there is still a way. Not the way your grandparents took. Not the way that assumes you will own something outright. but a way that works, a way that is legal, documented, and available, a way that lets you sign your name to something real. The practical challenge is simple. Pick one state. Just one. Go to its Trustlands office website. The links are in the description. And read what they have available right now. Do not commit to anything. Do not apply yet. Just look. See what the actual prices are. See what the leases actually say. Read the terms. Read the history. Read the photographs. Because once you do that, you will know whether this is real for you or whether it is just a beautiful idea that belongs to someone else. And if it is real, if something in those listings makes your chest tighten a little bit, then you will know what the next step is. You will not have to guess. You will not have to wonder. The path will be there. One last thing before you go. These 5 states are not the only states that own land. They are not even the only states running cabin programs. Dozens of states have smaller programs, one-off opportunities, seasonal leases, and management agreements that work in almost the same way. What makes these 5 special is that they have scaled it. They have normalized it. They have admitted openly that yes, ordinary people can have this. And that normalization matters. It matters because it means the program is not going anywhere. It matters because it means there is bureaucracy, but there is also infrastructure. It matters because it means you are not taking a gamble on some experimental idea that might evaporate. You are stepping into something that has worked for decades. Something that will likely still be working when you are sitting on your own porch with your own name on a lease and a lake in front of you that cost you nothing compared to what it should have. So here is what I need you to do today. Not tomorrow, not when you have more money saved, not when life settles down. Today, open one browser tab. Search for your state's Trustlands office. See what is real. See what is possible. Because the truth, and I mean this plainly, is that you have been told you cannot have this. You have been told that land is expensive and scarce and locked away. And for most of America, that is true. But for these 5 states, in these 5 programs, that story has an ending that nobody told you about. And the only way you will ever know whether that ending is meant to be yours is if you look. Thank you for watching. If this video changed how you think about what is possible, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you do not miss the next one. And if you have ever leased land or lived on state property, drop a comment below and tell me your story. I read every single one. See you next time.